Tonight, sounding the alarm, Dr. Anthony Fauci with the stark warning to Congress as 23 states report a rise in new cases. In Texas and California, staggering new records. By the next few weeks are critical. And the hopeful message today on a potential vaccine. President Trump in Arizona as the state breaks its single-day record for new cases, his second indoor event in just 4 days. And his response to whether his statement about slowing down testing was really just a joke. The surprise twist in the FBI investigation into a noose found in NASCAR star Bubba Wallace's garage stall, why no charges will be filed. The clash near the White House, police driving out protesters trying to topple a statue, but the president is now threatening to do. The family of Rayshard Brooks dressed in white for a final farewell. MLK's daughter with a powerful message to his children. The world's top tennis player testing positive for COVID-19 after a tournament. What it means for other sports as they eye their returns. Nearly 100 workers infected at a single Amazon warehouse. And the primaries in a pandemic. Will we see some election upsets tonight?
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. I'm Savannah Guthrie in for Lester. And tonight, the stark warning from the nation's top infectious disease doctor coming before Congress. Dr. Anthony Fauci said today we're seeing a disturbing surge of infections, and the next 2 weeks will be critical. Cases of COVID-19 are on the rise in almost half the states now, with record surges in Florida, Texas, and Arizona, where the president visited this afternoon. We have our team covering all angles tonight, and we'll begin with NBC's Tom Costello in Washington.
With long lines for testing and COVID-19 cases surging once again in the South and the West, the nation's top coronavirus experts today warned Congress the pandemic remains a very real threat.
We're now seeing a disturbing surge of infections.
Nationwide, 23 states are reporting an increase in cases of 25% or more over the last 2 weeks, with increases of 100% or more in Hawaii, Oklahoma, Montana, Florida, Arizona, South Carolina, Wyoming, and Oregon. Experts believe it could be linked to the Memorial Day weekend when millions of Americans chose to leave home and socialize in large groups.
The next couple of weeks are going to be critical in our ability to address those surgings that we're seeing.
The stats today, 2.3 million confirmed cases across the country, 120,000 deaths and climbing by 500 to 1,000 each day. Experts warn of a potentially horrifying death toll to come, the possibility of 200,000 deaths by the fall.
We have large parts of the country that believe that somehow the pandemic is over and that we're done with the pandemic. That is going to get us into a lot of trouble. We are not done with this pandemic. 14 states plus D.C. have shown a drop in cases of 25% or more over the last 2 weeks. Today's hearing comes just 3 days after President Trump said a decrease in testing would slow the number of cases.
So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
The White House said the president was kidding, but today Mr. Trump said he was serious. His top doctors, though, insist nothing's changed.
I know for sure, but to my knowledge, none of us have ever been told to slow down on testing. We're going to be doing more testing, not less.
All of us have been and continue to be committed to increasing readily, timely access to testing.
The good news, the first potential vaccine enters phase 3 clinical testing next month. Fauci is optimistic about a vaccine by year's end.
I still think there is a reasonably good chance that by the very beginning of 2021, that if we're going to have a vaccine, that we will have it by then.
When will schools be able to open? The top docs today said that's up to each individual state and school district. One size does not fit all for schools or universities. Meanwhile, a plea to young people to think about those at risk and avoid large crowds.
Plan A, don't go in a crowd. Plan B, if you do, make sure you wear a mask.
The concern tonight, weeks after a surge, the death rate typically goes up. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
I'm Morgan Chesky in Texas, where tonight a surge in COVID-19 is raising fears as the state reopens.
We are moving very fast in the wrong direction.
Multiple cities turning into hotspots, and today another record high, 5,000 new cases statewide. Now, after blaming rising numbers on increased testing, Governor Greg Abbott changing course.
COVID-19 is now spreading at an unacceptable rate in Texas, and it must be corralled. We have several strategies to reduce the spread without having to shut Texas back down.
In less than a week, new cases in the Houston area have more than doubled, prompting this warning from infectious disease specialist, Dr. Peter Hotez.
And I believe if the numbers continue to rise at this pace, Houston is on track to become the worst affected city in the United States.
The spike prompting Texas Children's to now treat adults in an isolation unit. Hospital staff says the situation is changing.
At this point, we're actually are trying to catch up. And we're in the beginning when this happened, we're in the front of it.
Experts partially blame the surge on people not wearing masks. Lack of social distancing, especially among younger adults, another concern. In North Carolina, one of the many places where crowds pack the beaches. And in Florida, officials report a radical rise in younger COVID cases.
Half of these positive tests are in that 34 and under age group.
In Arizona, cases have doubled over the last 2 weeks. 84% of their ICU beds are now in use. And on the West Coast, California breaking their own daily high. More than 5,000 new cases in the last 24 hours.
There's this false sense of security right now because things are opening up.
Back in Texas, a push from the owner of the Houston Rockets for everyone to follow the guidelines.
If we don't wear masks, we're going to have to shut down again.
With numbers rising, officials say this pandemic may just be getting started. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
President Trump is in one of those hotspots tonight, campaigning in Arizona, a critical battleground state. And NBC's Jeff Bennett reports on politics and the pandemic.
President Trump tonight, for the second time in less than a week, addressing supporters at a large indoor gathering, this time at Dream City Church in Phoenix. The event raising health concerns, with Arizona today reporting a record number of new coronavirus cases. NBC's Joe Fryer is there.
Some people are worried about being in a confined space with a lot of people right now because of coronavirus. Do you have any worries at all?
Those people should have been worried when they were doing the riots, and nobody seemed to worry then.
Leaders of the church hosting the event said in a since-deleted video that they installed new technology they claimed could virtually kill COVID-19 in the air.
We've installed these units, and it kills 99.9% of COVID within 10 minutes.
The church today posting a statement saying they misspoke, adding, "We hope to alleviate any confusion we may have caused." Event organizers say they're asking but not requiring people to wear masks inside. Today's visit marks President Trump's third trip to Arizona in 5 months, a state crucial to his re-election. Arizona was once a reliably Republican stronghold, but national polls show the president currently trailing Democratic rival Joe Biden. The president trying to regain momentum by returning to an issue that helped him win the White House in 2016, border security.
My administration has done more than any administration in history to secure our southern border.
The president stopping in Yuma to tout the completion of 200 miles of border wall built during his administration. Meantime, former President Barack Obama making his first appearance on the 2020 virtual campaign trail with Joe Biden tonight slammed President Trump, accusing him of practicing what he called a, quote, shambolic, disorganized, mean-spirited approach to government that endangers American values. Savannah?
Jeff, thank you. The FBI says tonight it is confident no crime was committed in connection with a noose found in the garage used by NASCAR star Bubba Wallace. NBC's Pete Williams joins us now. Pete, what have we found out?
Well, the FBI and the Justice Department now say it does not appear that anybody intended to express hatred for Bubba Wallace. The discovery of a noose in his NASCAR garage touched off a huge and emotional show of support for him at the track in Alabama. But now the FBI says the noose had actually been there for at least 6 months, since last October, and that Wallace was only assigned that specific garage last week. Investigators determined nobody could have known he would be assigned to that garage. Conclusion, no evidence of any federal crime. NASCAR says it was a garage door pull rope fashioned like a noose, and says it's grateful to learn that this was not an intentional or racist act. Savannah.
All right, Pete Williams with the update. Thank you. A growing battle in this country tonight over the removal of monuments viewed by some as symbols of racism, with the president now weighing in. NBC's Garrett Hake with our report.
Police in Washington this morning using pepper spray and batons to clear protesters from the streets around Lafayette Park, where last night federal officers and an even larger group of demonstrators clashed.
Without any warnings, they came and started beating people, maliciously with batons.
Protesters tying ropes around a statue of Andrew Jackson, trying and failing to topple the bronze monument to the nation's 7th president.
Andrew Jackson was a slave owner. He was the opposite of sensitive to African Americans, and he committed terrible atrocities and violence against Native Americans in this country.
The incident drawing the attention of President Trump, who said he would use a 2003 law to arrest and pursue harsh sentences for those caught damaging or destroying statues of veterans on federal property.
They're bad people. They don't love our country, and they're not taking down our monuments.
But across the country, in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, statues and monuments deemed racist by some are coming down by force or by government order. Demonstrators this week tearing down monuments to Confederate figures in Raleigh and a statue of Union General and President Ulysses S. Grant, the man who defeated the Confederacy, in San Francisco. In New York City, the Museum of Natural History says it will take down a statue of Teddy Roosevelt in the face of growing criticism over its depiction of black and Native American figures beneath the former president.
These are monuments that don't represent for the people, it's representation of oppression.
D.C. police are out in force. The protesters pushed back a full block from the Jackson statue and the White House. Police determined to avoid a repeat of the chaos we saw here last night. Savannah?
Garrett, thank you. And in Atlanta today, a farewell to Rayshard Brooks, 11 days after he was shot and killed by Atlanta police. The messages at his funeral resonating far behind the church where he was remembered today. Here's NBC's Blaine Alexander.
Dressed in white, the family of Rayshard Brooks filed into Atlanta's historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. I can only imagine. A soulful but somber goodbye for the 27-year-old killed by a police officer. The service, at times, focusing not on his death, but his life as a father of 4.
I look at my grandbaby right there. She looks just like him. And when I look at her, I know that he's not gone.
I need you. In the church once pastored by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., today his daughter spoke directly to Brooks' children.
I know the pain of growing up without a father and the ongoing attention around his tragic loss.
Today's service capped at 200, family and friends by invitation only. And outside, more mourners at a funeral celebrating Brooks' life while protesting his death.
What do you do to stay alive? Comply like George Floyd or run like Rayshard Brooks? I'm not asking for a friend, I'm asking for myself and my nieces and my nephews and my children.
King focusing on the date Brooks died, June 12th, the same day civil rights leader Medgar Evers was killed in 1963, the day Nelson Mandela was sentenced to prison.
And so June 12th is now a constant reminder of the struggle for justice.
Today, a rallying cry for peace.
Let my Uncle Duff make us better people no matter the race. Let's treat each other how we want it to be treated as people.
And a message for those protesting.
We've got to keep on walking together and marching together and standing together, and together we will win.
Blaine Alexander, NBC News, Atlanta.
In 60 seconds, one of the world's top tennis superstars testing positive for COVID-19 after a controversial tournament. What it means for other pro sports as they try to get back to game on. One of the world's top tennis players, Novak Djokovic, has tested positive for COVID-19 after a controversial tournament. And it comes as sports remain in limbo and leagues like the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NFL try to map out alternative seasons. Here's NBC's Miguel Almaquer.
The tennis tournament organized by Novak Djokovic looked like any other pre-COVID. Little social distancing and hardly a mask in sight amid a pandemic. Now after Djokovic, his wife and other stars tested positive for the coronavirus, the 33-year-old says, "I'm extremely sorry for each individual case of infection." Just days earlier, Djokovic posted a video at a concert and appeared to attend clubs overseas without a mask, saying this earlier in the month.
You know, life goes on, and I think we as athletes, we are looking forward to play and to compete.
The incident is exactly what worries the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Tonight, baseball is trying to salvage its season. Players reportedly agreeing to a new 60-game season starting in late July. But there is still no agreement over new health and safety protocols.
Even if they do play ball this year, fans may not be able to return to venues like Dodger Stadium. In a sign of the times, one of the most classic ballparks is now being used for COVID testing.
With the NFL Players Association now urging an end to private workouts like the kind Tom Brady took part in Tampa today, NBA players are now getting their first COVID test mandated by the league. If the season resumes, players would be isolated at Disney World. But in Florida, there's been a 168% rise in COVID cases the last 2 weeks.
The idea that you can assure the safety of any professional sport is beyond my comprehension.
Tonight, playing ball amid a pandemic, perhaps the biggest gamble taken yet by professional sports. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
A company so many of us have depended on during the pandemic, Amazon, is facing an outbreak of its own. And now one worker is speaking out about his safety concerns. Here's NBC's Jolene Kent.
Tonight, new data on coronavirus cases inside a single Amazon warehouse in Minnesota, raising alarms.
Every single day I was being worried. I complained many times.
State health officials now revealing 88 workers tested positive at MSP1, an Amazon warehouse with a 1,000-person workforce between April and mid-June, meaning about 1 in 12 employees contracted the virus. Jamal Omer tells us he loves working at Amazon but tested positive in May, and so did his wife, 2 of his children, and his 75-year-old mother-in-law.
She went to hospital. She spent 3 weeks.
Tonight, Amazon has not responded to our multiple requests for comment and denied our previous requests to go inside to observe their safety measures or tell us how many people have been infected or have died. By an NBC News count, at least 10 Amazon warehouse workers have died from coronavirus nationwide. Tonight, a Minnesota Health Department official tells us Amazon is not the worst outbreak in the state, and the situation has improved since the state made new recommendations.
I think a customer should know that they are definitely responding to the pandemic. We're all learning here. The boxes that they send to your house are not a risk for COVID.
Do you think Amazon's doing enough to mitigate the spread?
Yes, they're planning in the future to increase their testing availability.
But some Amazon workers in Minnesota are not convinced yet.
I'm glad they're providing masks. I'm glad they're taking your temperatures. But like worker safety is not the top priority.
Minnesota is a state where cases are decreasing, showing just how complicated reopening the economy could be across the country. Savannah?
Joe, thank you. Next, the showdowns on this primary day in a pandemic. Back now on this primary day in the middle of a pandemic, with all eyes on Kentucky to see which Democrat will take on the Senate's top Republican. Here's NBC's Kristen Welker.
Tonight is the protest movement sweeping the country, about to shake up the Democratic race to take on the Senate's most powerful Republican, Mitch McConnell. One candidate predicting a major surprise.
Fighting for a better future has allowed us to build this coalition. It's going to shock the world today.
Democratic State Representative Charles Booker has been a major player in Kentucky's protests for racial justice. Booker supports defunding police, the Green New Deal, and Medicare for all. And he's backed by progressive stars Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
We need to uproot structural inequity and structural racism.
Booker has been an underdog against retired Marine fighter pilot and early frontrunner Amy McGrath, who's supported by establishment Democrats.
We didn't care about politics. We just wanted to serve our country.
Earlier this month, McGrath was asked if she had taken part in protests.
I have not.
And why?
Well, I've been with my family, and I've had some family things going on this past weekend.
She was asked again today.
I did participate. I went to Louisville and I was in Central Park for a memorial service for Breonna Taylor and George Floyd.
In a Louisville polling place today, mixed views.
I felt like she would be the best person to get in and knock Mitch out.
I'm feeling like we need some change. So really like Charles Booker a lot.
So far, no major problems reported tonight at the polling places. Savannah.
Kristen, thank you. And up next, a young skater with a powerful message. And before we go tonight in our latest installment of Nightly News Kids Edition, we'll introduce you to a remarkable young skater who's inspiring others with a touching routine. Weekend anchor Kate Snow chats with Caitlin Saunders about her message and one girl's act of kindness for nurses on the front lines. Our new episode is streaming now. That's Nightly News. I'm Savannah Guthrie. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning on Today. Good night.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.